Welcome to the SDA Housing podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hi everybody, my name is Eryn and I'm your host for today from NDIS Property Australia here in Brisbane, and you're listening to the SDA Housing podcast, a show that explains, highlights and guides and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today, Luba and I are really excited about a guest speaker. We've got Brendon Woolf here, and he's going to be talking about SDA. He lives in SDA himself. He'll be talking about himself, and we're just really excited to get straight into it. Luba, do you want to take it away?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Brendon. Hi, Eryn.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to have you guys here. Yeah, I just wanted to give a bit of a background about the impact of SDA. So, as we know, specialist disability accommodation has been started and supported by the federal government, aiming to improve and change the lives of the Australians who live with a disability for the better. So financially backed up by the government, SDA has become available to the private property investment market to attract the development of more SDA housing and meet the demand from the NDIS participants. So SDA investment is a social impact investment that genuinely changes lives of people. And among our podcast listeners, we have people interested in investing in NDIS property and willing to learn more. Our current clients, the investors, NDIS and SDA providers, and the NDIS participants themselves. And our goal is here to keep the conversation about SDA going, educating about SDA, showcasing the incredible NDIS community who are just the people who are working towards the future where Australians with a disability feel included in our society and experience choice and control over their own lives. And so, so today we're super privileged and excited to have Brendon on our podcast episode, and he'll be sharing with us a lot of interesting information. Hello, Brendon, again.
Hello, guys. Thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this podcast. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to be sharing my SDA journey with your listeners, and I hope to maybe inspire some participants who are looking at SDA, and hopefully they look at applying themselves.
Yeah, amazing. We're really excited to have you, just to talk to you and hear your story and get your story out there, and maybe it'll help, as you said, help other people who are looking at getting into SDA.
Yeah, I'm really keen to share my journey. So I guess I should start.
Go for it. Tell us about you.
So I applied for SDA back in 2019. With as how it come about was I was regularly having a session with my occupational therapist at the time, and she was telling me that there was this new part of the NDIS called SDA, and she actually said to me that she thought that I could benefit from SDA, and she was like, "How would you like your own little place, your own apartment, you can your dream of living independently can be a reality." And I was like, "Are you serious? Like, is is this even like a thing? Because I'd never heard of SDA before. Um, I knew about I knew everything NDIS, but nothing SDA.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay, well then let's do it. So we went through all the steps, like having the functional capacity assessment to see whether I was eligible or not, and it turns out she thought I was. So the we applied, and I hadn't heard anything from my application until a standard plan review that every participant gets to at the end of their plan. And then in that planning meeting, I was um, told that my SDA had been approved. But there was an issue. I did not know what approval I had. Um,
Right.
the planner didn't even know what approval I had. So I was going on the assumption that it was approved on the recommendation of what um on the recommendation. So I was like, okay, cool. So I started looking for properties. Using I used the Housing Hub website, which subsequently I now work for that website. Um, I found a great property that was being built about 10 minutes from where I was currently living with my dad and that. And I got in contact with the people at Adapt Housing, who were the SDA provider, and I was like, hey, like, yeah, he basically said, well, we've got an apartment. I'm actually the first one in Luton to receive SDA, and yeah, so Dave was doing all the check with my plan and my approval, and he noticed I hadn't been approved for single occupancy, um, which is what I was thinking. And he's like, oh, we're going to have to appeal decision. And so I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, oh, you're going to have to appeal your STA approval. And I was like, and he's like, you're gonna have to do a change of circumstances review. And I was like, oh, okay. I'd been through that process before, so I wasn't thinking anything about it. I thought it was just a minor hiccup, and then that came back as declined, and then he's like, well, you're gonna have to go for a section 100. And then I was like, that's when I was sort of thinking, oh, things are starting to go wrong here. Like what potentially could happen to me, because I'd already arranged that I was moving out and stuff, and I was preparing for um that that stage of my life, and then that came back as declined, and Dave's like, well, your last and only final opportunity. And at this time, he's been like adaptive, been so supportive. Like, they got me in contact with Greg Barry, who helped me write my AAT application, and we started that process, and at the time I was thinking, because I knew nothing about AAT. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how it integrated with the NDTIS. All I knew was that it involved lawyers and that it's quite a vigorous process. And I was like, oh, okay. So we Greg Barry wrote my application. We submitted it, and we started, I guess, the case conference stage back in August, even earlier. We went through all the case conferences. We've even been to a couple of directions here, and nothing was coming out of that in a positive sense for me. The agency kept dragging the chain, just like kept delaying things even longer, wanting more evidence and stuff. And I was like, this is really crazy. All this because I want to live by myself. And it was determined that it had to go to a hearing. Now, I had a 2-day hearing back in, it would have been uh, June this year. Subsequently, the agency decided at the 11th hour they wanted further evidence. So it's still not over for me. It's really distressing. I want to have the right to choose where I want to live and who I want to live with. I don't want to live in a shared environment with other people that I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's SDA is very different in normal real estate. In a shared environment, if you're an able body, get that choice of who you want to live with. Under SDA, you don't. So you could be living with people with all sorts of different disabilities, um, different support workers. Like everyone has their right, who supports them and when they support them. Like I have independent support workers, and they weren't too keen on working alongside um uh, service providers that they didn't know. So for me, it's a no-brainer, really. I just want to live by myself. What my opinion is that the legislation is so open to determination, to interpretation, that even the planners don't understand it. So they're kind of just palming it off to the AAT to deal with because they don't want to deal with it. This, you know, the one thing that keeps coming back is value for money, and what sort of price you put on someone's life when you take away their choice and control on who they want to live with.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's priceless, and the choice of who you want, you get to decide who you live with, and every single human being or citizen in this country has the same rights, and that you are no different in that sense. For those of you who doesn't know what AAT is, it's Administrative Appeals Tribunal, and that's what Brendon was sharing with us right now, like just now, his journey through this. Yeah, I guess we hold very high hopes for the new NDIA minister to change this process, and so that we hear less and less stories like that, like like what you, Brendon, have to go through.
I mean, one of the reasons why I've chosen to go down this AAT path is basically not just for me, but for other participants.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about where you're living now in comparison to where you were?
Yeah.
Yep. So, before living where I currently live, I was living with my dad in a government-funded housing commission house that was purposely built for my wheelchair. Where I live now is in an apartment complex with 10 apartments. Um, 8 of them are high physical support needs.
Mm-hmm.
2 are improved livability. In my apartment, it is a high physical support need. So that means the doors are widened, or the PowerPoint at my level. I have provisions in my apartment for assistive technology such as a ceiling hoist, automatic doors. It also has provisions for electric blinds as well. So basically, in my apartment, if it came down to it, everything can be controlled by voice. There's site overnight assistance, which is the sill when I don't have my normal support workers here.
Yeah, awesome. So the house that you were in before, it was still like fitting your needs?
It was fitting my needs, but I I was outgrowing it,
Yeah.
and I wanted to, like every other 18. Well, when I was 18, I wanted to move out of home too. Like, everyone wants to move out of the family home away from parents at some point in their life. Can't live with mum and dad all your life. You have to be able to experience life
Yeah.
on your own. And my dad, he's not a very young and well man either. So I have to I had to start looking at the longer term option
Mm-hmm.
for me as well, because Dad's not going to be there forever, and yeah, I have to learn to survive without Dad, and I guess the NDIS has helped me, in a way, sort of move away from Dad providing a lot of the support for me, where he was doing before I had NDIS. So naturally, eventually, I was like, yeah, I want to move out of home.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and uh, it was such a for me. It was like I was so excited, but it's also been a bit of a downer as well, because of all this appeals process. It doesn't feel it still doesn't feel real. Like once I get the determination that I'm seeking, then I will breathe a little bit easier, and maybe celebrate the fact that I've got my own place.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, your SDA home is your forever home if you choose to have it like that, and that's what I want. I want my forever home. Like, I have no desire to move anywhere else. Where I currently live, it's all like shops and hospital and doctors and that. I'm like within a 10-minute roll in my wheelchair. Like it's so close. And I'm 2 minutes away from a train station where I can access Brisbane and the Gold Coast within an hour. So for me, location is perfect.
So we know, Brendon, that you work for Housing Hub and as a lived experience facilitator. And do I understand it correctly? Is that the current apartment you're living in is provided by them or supported? Like, what's the situation around?
So that the property is provided by Adapt Housing.
Uh huh.
So the housing hub, it's like realestate.com, really, where
Yeah.
where participant where SDA providers can post properties. We do more than just also provide the support coordination for when you're writing your SDA applications,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
is with appeals like process as well. So yeah, it's more than just a website. There are other support services out there. Uh, um,
Yeah.
And
Housing Hub is massive. I think that was a really good analogy that it's kind of like realestate.com, but for SDA houses. I like that. That was a good way to describe it.
Yeah. And how did you start working with them? And
Okay.
what is your
Bit of a funny story. So one of my old support coordinators from 2-3 years ago, she was working with them. She's like, hey, we're looking for a group of people with experience in relation to SDA, and she said to come work at our company. And I was like, and she's like, you should apply. So I got in contact, I did the application, and I got the job, and I've been there over 12 or 14. I'll probably no, it'll be close to 18 months now that
Awesome.
I've been working for them. I love the job. I love what I do. I love being able to share my story with participants. I love the fact that participants can like hear it from the people themselves rather than someone who doesn't have a disability. So it's all about people with disabilities, helping people with disabilities, making them feel more comfortable, because at the end of the day, people with disabilities gets it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One more question about your work. Do you work from home? What's your arrangement?
Yeah, so having my own place or with a room that I've got in office can sort of alleviate the fact that I haven't got participants in the background. Yeah, one of the reasons why I'm wanting my own place as well.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. And even just having like a quiet space when you're trying to work is like what everyone wants, Yeah.
I find it really interesting. I just find it weird how they seem to think that people can sleep and work in the one room. Like, I'm sorry, but how many people sleep and work in the same room? I mean, I couldn't, but I could not be more thankful to Dave and Adapt Housing for everything that they have done for me over the past. So supportive. They've really backed me 110%. I just couldn't thank them enough, and the help that they've given me, and they've really inspired me. SDA is passion, and because of that, because of them that I have, I'm just so grateful for them.
Yeah, adapters. Yeah, we love them over here, obviously.
Yeah, this is just Brendon. This is a living, like your example of working with Adapt is wonderful. Just love how they go, beyond with, to achieve those goals for you. And we are actually, Adapt is one of our official partners as SDA providers. And we just love hearing how they will do everything to make sure that participants are housed in the appropriate, environment. And yeah, that's wonderful to hear.
And it's so nice to hear as well that like just talking to them and everything has ignited such a passion in you for SDA. Like that's in any context, that's always so nice to hear that like someone's found something that they're so passionate about, and that I think that's great.
I keep joking with Dave that when he retires, I'm taking his job.
You're going to take over Adapt.
Yeah.
Luba, you wanted to talk a little bit about co-living and future trends because you read something about that.
Yeah, I wanted to share with you, Brendon, and I guess ask you your thoughts on that. So it's about like future trends in SDA. And so yesterday I read this online article published on the Conversation about co-housing in for NDS participants.
Yep.
So, and this is the idea of semi-communal living that includes shared facilities and public space, self-governance, and design input from potential residents, so meaning NDS participants themselves. So, and they were presenting this interesting project here in the article, co-housing project in Perth Southeast in Western Australia. And so the way it looks is that the design includes 20 private pod houses with a central hub where residents gather, so NDS participants gather, they cook, socialise and learn new skills, including gardening in an existing and successful veggie growing enterprise. And there are also on-site support services. So that sounds really nice. And this project, I guess, is going ahead and looks very impressive from my personal perspective. Have you got any thoughts on that kind of approach?
That approach is the perfect approach. However, the agency may see that as a different. There seems to be this narrative within the agency that shared accommodation is better than single occupancy. Single occupancy living. Now, single occupancy is not for everyone. I understand that some people prefer to live with other people, but again, the agency has to be more inclined to approve single occupancy, or projects like this are not going to happen. They're just not going to build any. We talk about a housing crisis as a whole, but in the disability sector at the moment, you've got an even bigger one. So you've got on the one side, you've got participants not getting the funding that they're seeking for what they want, and then you've got all these empty SDA that can't put participants in. Say SDA providers are not going to build in future. It's a big risk.
Yeah. Well, obviously we're seeing that at the moment over here. In a few areas we've seen similar to what you're saying. And it's, yeah.
The property that I live in now, we're only not even half full.
You're right.
And that's because of no one's got the right.
Mm-hmm.
So SDA providers are losing out big time, and it's a double. I would say it's a double entendre for both participants and SDA providers. But if they're going to go ahead with that project in WA, the agency has to be like, okay, well, we need occupancy approvals. You know, what we know from an SDA budget, the NDIA are actually under budget for SDA.
Right.
We know that. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I only have one more question left from myself. And that would be, what is your advice for others that are seeking SDA funding, or if they want to appeal their current funding? What's your words of advice?
In one sense, I'm like, yes, go for it.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, if you don't seek the funding that you're wanting, be prepared for a very, very long process. It emotionally drains you. But I'm all for the participant. Yeah, I'm still going for it. It's giving me, I don't know, this appeals process has given me the drive to change, to see change happen within SDA. So I'm like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I think it is obviously like no one wants to hear that it's taken 12 months for you and you're still going. But I think it's also so great that it's like you are so determined to make a change. Like, I think that will really help so many people's lives.
You know, and I hope that it will be a chain of it will be a chain effect. So whatever so with me going through this process and helping someone else, hopefully that next person will come along and help three other people, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like a change, a change is needed, and I'm, you know, it's really upsetting to see the culture that's in the agency at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a, you know, it's quite a deflating experience at the moment, and they need to change the way they operate.
They absolutely do. Just going back to the advice, I guess, for the participants who are looking for SDA funding. From what I know, it's very important to find to have a good occupational therapist to work together to produce this. You know, to apply for SDA funding, right? So the role of OT in your life and applying for SDA, how has it been going?
So I've had two OTs.
Mm-hmm.
My first OT and my the OT that I have now have done a brilliant job. Um, they've articulated in a better way than I could imagine of what I'm wanting. Actually, they both never have had any SDA experience prior to me. Like they've never had a participant go right through the appeal process, but they have done a fantastic job. And again, it's the individual participant. If you can find an OT that has had a vast knowledge or experience in writing SCA applications, I would seriously do your homework to find the best.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that about wraps up everything that I wanted to ask.
Well, I love seeing you, Brendon, be very vocal about your experience and just how you share your story as much as you can. It will definitely ignite a change for, one, two, three, or maybe, hundreds people in your situation. Yeah.
SCA is only for 7%, so really it's not a big amount. You know, people are fighting, going through the AAT process for what, 7%?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, currently we've got about 30,000 people who are identified who eligible for SDA funding. That's
The last time I heard, there was 5,000 current. Sorry, there's over 5,000 vacant SDA properties across this country.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
to
you'd be
filled.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's staggering amount.
Yeah, 100%. It is. It's crazy. Yeah, there's just like, there are houses for people. Like there's places for people to be, but
Yep,
they're just not getting the funding that they
yep.
need to be there. And that's like, that astounds me.
And we're at risk of losing an SDA market if things
Yep.
don't change. because builders won't build.
I guess we are SDA fighters then. We call them.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming and talking to us. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to everything that you have to say, and I'm really excited to put this out and have people hear it.
No, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity and for allowing me to share my. If it can help one other person, I'm grateful. And anyone can contact me on Facebook or anything if they want SDA advice. I'm more than happy to help.
Yeah, I'll pop everything you send us in the description of the episode as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.